everyone. Let me just set up the recording and get my slides up. And let me go into I just want to verify, Doug and Raphael, can you see my slides?
Yes, all set.
Awesome.
Sure can. Looks good. Yep.
Thank you, guys. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Tech Tuesday session on Microsoft Forms. My name is Vanessa. I am the communication specialist with ITS, and I'll be talking through some of Microsoft Forms today with everyone. I also have two other people with me. I have Doug Cohen, who's Director of Educational Technologies, and he's used Forms a lot on the academic side, so he'll be demonstrating how he uses Forms and how you can get started creating your own forms after the session. I've also got Raphael Supa, who is the manager of server infrastructure in ITS, and he is the kind of guru for all things Microsoft Office. So when it comes to things like, what storage do we get, policies surrounding Microsoft Office, he's your guy, and he's here to help answer any questions that you may have during the session. A couple of things before we get started. If you're new to Tech Tuesdays, welcome. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions at all during the session, please post them in the chat. We do have everybody's mics turned off because we expect a lot of people on the session, and we don't want to have any distracting background noises, but you can always post a question in the chat at any time, and we'll be stopping periodically just to answer as many as we can. I'm also recording the session, so later on you'll get an email from me at the end of the day with a link to the video that you can watch at any time, share with colleagues, if they're interested about using Forms, if you think it'll be very useful for your department. I'll also be including some really helpful links and guides about how to use Forms and some other survey tools that we also have at Weill Cornell. And one final thing, this is the last Tech Tuesday of the fiscal year before we take a really short summer break. So we're going to use that time to come up with a new schedule for the next fiscal year that'll hopefully have a lot of really cool new topics, as well as some old ones that we can revisit. So we're not going anywhere if you don't see some emails from us for a while. We're just working on creating that new schedule. So you'll see some emails from us, at some point in the summer with some new details about Tech Tuesdays. So without further ado, let's get started. What is Microsoft Forms? You may or may not have seen this little icon in your Office 365 account, and that takes you to Microsoft Forms. And basically what it is, it's a really great survey tool that you could just quickly open and create surveys really in minutes, surveys or quizzes, and you share these surveys with other people and invite them to respond. And with Forms, you can collect the data. You've got, some basic analytics, some nice visualizations that you can look at depending on the question types that you have in your survey. And you can even download the raw data in a really handy Excel form. So you can access your Microsoft Forms application either on a web browser. So, if you're on your laptop and you have access to the internet, you can log into your Office 365 account and you can find forms and just create things from there. You can also create forms on the go using your mobile device. Forms is part of the Microsoft Office mobile app that you can download for free on an Android or an iPhone. And it's really great because you can access your forms from either device. The app doesn't have maybe as feature-rich options as you would find on the web browser version on your laptop, let's say, but it's still a great way to kind of access your content on the go whenever you need it. You can make updates from your phone, find them in your web browser, and it works seamlessly. It's great. You can also see the real-time results as they're submitted. And like I mentioned, there are some analytics features where you can just take all that data and analyze the responses as you need to. So why should you use Forms? There's a quick little preview of what we're going to get into later with the demo, but it's really the perfect way to just collect a lot of data that you might need on the fly. For example, let's say that you are in Microsoft Teams and you've got a lot of people who are members of a particular channel you're in, and maybe you want to get information about how they feel about a particular project that's going on or a situation that's happening at that time, you can easily pop a poll that would be created from Microsoft Forms into Teams and collect all that data. It only takes really a few minutes, just depending on what you're trying to ask, but it's really great for those ad hoc forms that you want to make. And it's really easy to create just because the interface is so simple. When we get into the demo, you're going to see there's very, easy, big buttons of, add a question, do this, do that. There are popular question types that you can use, such as multiple choice, fill in the blank, upload files. And you'll see as we go through the demo that it's very intuitive, at least I think so. And you'll be able to kind of just very quickly create what you need. It also integrates with other Office 365 tools. I mentioned Teams earlier, but also Outlook. You can be creating an email and want people's opinions about, again, a particular topic. And instead of dealing with a really long email thread that's kind of cumbersome to read, you can just pop a poll in Outlook. I've actually done a video on this that I'll share with you guys so you can see how the integration works. And all that's coming from Forms. You can integrate Forms into Outlook and just collect data that way. And anytime you create a form, it's stored in your Office 365 cloud account, so you can access it from anywhere so long as you have an internet connection. And you may be familiar with several other types of survey tools that we have at Cornell, which begs the question, well, when do I use which tool, which is completely fair. So let's go through Forms first. As I mentioned, it's really ideal for just doing surveys on the fly, really basic inquiries. Because you can create surveys so quickly and it's so easy to use, it is a bit limited in how you can use it. You just have kind of a handful of question types that you can use that we'll go through. It's not quite as robust of a tool as, say, Qualtrics, which I'll get into in just a little bit. But if you just want to collect information with a couple of questions, Microsoft Forms is the perfect tool that you can use to do that. A really, really cool feature that I like about Forms is, let's say you develop a quiz in Microsoft Forms and send it out for people to take. Once you start seeing their answers, you can actually go into Forms and provide feedback on, let's say they got an answer or a question wrong. You can go in there and give feedback about why they got the answer incorrect, what they should look for in the future. I think that's a really cool feature that isn't necessarily available in other survey tools. And again, like I mentioned before, you have that Office 365 integration that's available with Forms and not so much in the other tools. Poll Everywhere does have a little bit of integration with Teams, let's say, but it's not quite as seamless as it would be with Forms. Speaking of Poll Everywhere, if you haven't used it, it's a very cool tool that's perfect for audience engagement. So if you're giving a presentation and whether it's in person or over Zoom, if you want to get the audience's opinion right then and there about something that you're discussing, you would just throw up a poll that you create in Poll Everywhere, whether it's through a web browser or using or embedded in your PowerPoint slides. And people usually answer through their mobile device, and you can see how everybody responds right there on the screen. So really, Poll Everywhere is much better for just keeping the audience in tune with what it is you're presenting at that point in time. There's also some great team building exercises in Poll Everywhere. There's a really cool competition feature that I really recommend everyone try at some point. It's very fun. But that's what Poll Everywhere is a little better for. And we have Qualtrics, which if you've ever been in Qualtrics, it's a lot more robust than Forms. So if you're looking to create maybe a little bit of a lengthier survey, something that has very complicated branching, authentication, like email triggers, things like that, Qualtrics is really the way to go. Not that you couldn't do, a shorter survey in Qualtrics, but if you're just looking to do something quick, MS Forms might be the better solution if you don't need all the bells and whistles of Qualtrics. One survey tool that I did not include on the slide, which you may have heard of, is Redcap. That's really used on the clinical side. It's kind of a completely different animal than all of these survey tools that you see on the screen. And that's used for a lot of research studies and data collection when it comes to that, especially when it comes to integrating with, Epic, for example. So it's a much different survey tool if you were wondering about it, and I can include information on that in my follow-up email. So how do you get to Microsoft Forms? You're probably very familiar with one of the ways, which is accessing it through your Office 365 account. o365.wild.cornell.edu. If you have not ever seen Forms, if you click on that, well, I'm sure you'll see it in the demo, but if you click on that upper left corner of your Office 365 dashboard, there's like 9 little squares up there. Forms is actually one of the options. It's been sitting there the whole time and you might not have seen it. So that's one way you can get to it. If you're already logged into Office 365 and just want to access Forms really quickly, there's a direct way, which is forms.microsoft.com. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Doug for the demo, but do we have any questions before we break for the demo?
Hey, Vanessa, so I have not seen any questions come through yet. We'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, perfect. Doug, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Vanessa, and good afternoon, everyone. So we'll start with the quick demo of how to get to Forms, as Vanessa just mentioned. Right now you should be seeing my O365 homepage. And if we click the 9 little boxes in my apps list, we have Forms. Because I spend a bit of time in Forms, I also have it here in my more recent list of applications. So when you click the Forms icon, it is going to take you to an interface that looks something similar to what I'm showing on the screen right now. And I just want to highlight, Forms has its own homepage of sorts. And what you're seeing is a bunch of test forms and forms that I've created to do various things. And some of these are scheduling intake forms, as Vanessa mentioned, on the academic program. So where we collect data for student meetings, some data collection for student health services. And I've also created a couple of Text Tuesday forms, and we're going to walk through creating one of them. And what I wanted to just showcase very quickly is a bit of the branding. So when you create branding for a form, you'll be able to see it in these little preview images. So you can see the first 2 that I have. I've added a background image, which we'll work through. I've added some Weill Cornell branding colors, whereas in some of the others, I've just done some limited branding and theming. So we'll jump right in. We'll create a quiz. Quiz and a form functionally are very similar, whereas quizzes allow you to assign points values and do feedback, as Vanessa mentioned, and also allow you to set a correct answer. So it's just a good way to demo the power. So we're going to hit the new quiz button. And before we do anything, I'm going to give it a quick title. And we're just going to call it Forms Demo. And I'm going to jump off first to do the theming. So we can hit the theme button in the upper right. And the plus icon, just apologies for 1 second, I have to move some windows around. If you hit the plus icon, you can create a custom theme. So I'm going to hit the plus icon, and you have 2 options. You can add a background image and you can add a color. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit to add a color, and you see that we need a hex code. So I happen to have open the brand guidelines, and I'm going to come right to our color palette. And we will make this one, we'll probably do the bright orange. So we can grab the hex code, we can copy that, and we come back and we can now paste the hex code, and I will try that one more time. And there we go. So we pasted the bright orange. It's telling us for better readability, use a darker color. So let's grab one of the darker colors from our brand guidelines, and we can quickly change that. And now we don't have the accessibility message. I'm also going to add a background image because they look really nice on the form. So I downloaded one of the images from our signage section of the brand guidelines. So I'm just going to jump on that real quick. I'm going to hit upload. It's on my desktop. So I'm going to upload this image. And very quickly, you'll see now that I've themed it. So when I come back and I look at our theme, and we'll quickly preview it before we go into building it, you can see now it has a theme very quickly. It has the appropriately branded colors and the approved signage background. So I'm going to give it a quick description just so you can see how this lays out. So short, sweet description, and let's add a question. And the first one I'm going to do is a rating. I had created some questions, so I'm going to copy paste the text from another document. But let's do a rating where we want to say, please rate this Tech Tuesday session. We can do star symbols. That's pretty straightforward. Everyone knows how to use those. That's a subjective question, so we will not assign any points value to it, and we will not make it required. Let's add a new question. And this time we're going to do a multiple choice. And I'm actually going to do a true or false question. And so what I can do, I'm going to copy some text that I have. And it recognized that I used the words true or false. So it gives me the options to potentially add true, false, or maybe without me having to type it. So I'm going to hit add all. I don't actually want the maybe option. So if I hover over it, I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to assign a points value. We'll give it 1 point. We're going to say it's required. And what I do want to show you is if you highlight some text in the question text, you do get the ability to do minimal styling. So we're just going to underline true or false to help make that a little easier for people to see. We'll add a third question, and we will also do another multiple choice. And I'm just going to say, can forms be created and shared with individuals outside of WCM? And these options make sense, yes, no, maybe. So I'm just going to hit add all. It recognized 1 point. It recognized required. So we'll leave that as is. And we'll do one more question. And I want to do a file upload question just to show you. And it's telling you, and this was what I wanted to highlight, that a new folder will be created in OneDrive and the uploads will be stored in OneDrive. So we'll hit OK. And very quickly to grab some text, I'm going to say, please upload an image of yourself. We'll allow one file. We don't need it to be a very large file, so we'll leave it by default. We're not going to make this required, and we're not going to assign any points to it because that's kind of silly to do. And with that, Forms auto saves. So as I've been just building these questions very quickly, Forms has auto saved, and I have the option to preview this. So if I hit the preview button, we can see how our form is going to look. So we see the title that I gave it, Tech Tuesday Form Demo, the description, and now you will see the questions. The ones with the red asterisk are denoted as required, and the ones without it are not. And so very quickly and simply, we've created a form, and I'm going to use this preview to submit some results just so you can see what some of the results will look like. So I'm thinking we're doing a pretty good job. I'll give us a 4. Is our Office 365 environment HIPAA compliant? The answer to that is yes. So I'm going to say true. Can you share Microsoft Forms with individuals outside of Weill Cornell? Yes, you can. So I will say yes. And I'm going to upload a file. I happen to have my Cornell image headshot ready to go. So I'm going to upload it. It's a small file. It should be very quick. And I'm going to submit the form. And so you can see that I get a quick completed. Here's your results. I can change that message. I'm not going to at the moment. So we can come back. And now in the edit mode, we can see the individual responses. So Forms is really great to give you live responses. A really nice feature is if you want to manipulate the responses or see them all in one spreadsheet, just hit open in Excel. It will download an Excel file. This is one area where I like Forms a little better than Qualtrics, is because the data is much easier to get access to. So you can see right now, we only have one response. It's going to show us a graphical representation of the responses so far. Again, I can download them in Excel if I would like to, and we can see the answers. The other thing is you have the option to delete all responses. So you can test your form like I'm doing now. And then when you're done testing your form, you can delete all responses. What I do want to quickly show, and apologies for having to move the browser window back and forth, is I have a OneDrive window open. And so same way to access, you go to, the 9 dots, go to OneDrive, and apps is a folder that is created for the form submission, and then it creates a folder Microsoft Forms. And you'll see that Tech Tuesday form demo is the form that I just created. And what it does is it creates a folder for the question, and all responses to that file upload question will now be put in this one folder. So again, a really nice feature of forms, if you use a file upload, is that all files go into one folder in your OneDrive, and they are super easy to gain access to. So I just wanted to share that. And you can see here that it flagged it with my name. That is a setting on the form, and I'll quickly go through some of the settings now, just so you can see them. So if we look at, sorry, my Zoom window is in the way. In the top right of the form, you have your ellipsis, your 3 dots. We can do a few more things with forms, and this is really where you can start making some changes. So if we go to settings, we have the option for the quiz to show results automatically. We'll leave that on, that makes sense. We have the ability to set it to anyone can respond, so we can make this a public form. I'm not going to do that at this point. I don't want anyone responding to it. But we also have the option to make it to anyone in the organization. So anyone in our Weill Cornell environment with a CVD and password that can log into O365 can come and see this survey if I share it to them. And you'll notice we have record name checked and 1 response per person. So that's why it flagged the file attachment with my name. A few different options for responses. Obviously, accept responses is whether the form is active or not. You can time this with a start date and an end date. If you have a long form, which I absolutely have some examples of that, you would want to show a progress bar. You can customize the thank you message. So instead of the generic one that we saw when I submitted the preview form, we can have this say something a little more appropriate. Thank you for taking the time. And now when we submit another, if we were to submit another preview, we would see this custom message. You can allow the user to get an email with their responses. So if you choose this, allow receipt of responses after submission. And you can also, as the form owner, get a notification of each time a response is submitted. So if you happen to just spend much more time in Outlook and you want to get an email notification versus having to come to the form, you can. And I'll quickly, just one more time, to do another submission to show you the different custom message. This time I will select some different answers. I will upload the same image, or that's the only one I have prepared, so we'll upload that one again. And now we should see that I already submitted it because I had that option to only allow once. So it really does give you flexibility to do a lot of things very, very, very quickly. And with that, let me stop sharing and let's take some questions. Vanessa and Raphael, if you can help me out with those.
Sure, Doug and Vanessa, I can go ahead if you like. Have some questions noted. Just give me 1 sec, please. Okay, so there was one question. If we can ever do a session on how to integrate PowerPoint. I'm sorry, not PowerPoint. Automate with forms. So how to make an integration. Creating maybe a flow, like sending out an email based on a certain action or trigger. And I think we can. We were just chatting about that, right? We should be able to that would be a good idea for another Tech Tuesday session.
The one thing to add in response to that question that Raphael reminded me of earlier is our Power Automate license is not available to everyone. So that is just something you would want to work with ITS on to make sure either that we provide you some support in the flow and also to make sure you'd have the appropriate license.
That's right. Yeah, it is license dependent, but if there's a need for it, you can definitely follow up with us. And, I think a session on that could be a good idea. We'll look into it. There was another question about anonymous pulse surveys. So I guess are anonymous responses allowed? And we did see that setting, Doug, right, where you can either collect user info or not, right? So that's, I think, one control for making answers anonymous or not.
Correct. So I'll just share screen. We can do anyone can respond. And once we do anyone can respond, we no longer have the options to require names. So it is absolutely an anonymous survey.
Doug, if you wanted to share the survey, how would you do that with other people?
So we have a couple of different options. So similar to where settings, if we go to collaborate or duplicate, we can share to collaborate, we can share it. So we can get a link to view it. And then we would simply just choose the settings here. So share to collaborate, we want to say who can do it, can view and edit, and copy the link. And once you copy the link, you can then paste it. And so by playing around with the settings, plus the collaborate feature, you can then determine exactly what you're going to do. And if you want to choose specific people, you can do that. And then when you share it, you'll have to add individual names as you choose them. So if we say specific people in the organization, you'll have to then fill it out. So, I would have to, I'm not going to ping Vanessa, but I could choose specifically who in the organization. So it's just working through both the settings and the collaborate and duplicate features.
We just got a question that's actually quite interesting because I've seen this as well. One of the challenges we have is that when we use outside sites like Paperless Post or Evite for departmental event invitations, it goes to spam. Qualtrics is cumbersome for such a simple task. Is Forms a good solution for that?
So off the top of my head, I would think yes. It would be something I'd want to test out just to make sure that the form would meet your needs. But if you're just collecting some simple information, first name, last name, you could actually provide a calendar link. So you could provide some of that data. I would think Forms would be a great option. The user could then have the option to receive their results via email, so they would know they submitted to sign up. You could get the notification as well. But yeah, it would be something I think we would just test out to make sure it worked for you.
Yeah, Doug, this is Rafael. I would say I definitely agree because, Forms is already part of our O365 environment. So this means that email should be automatically allowed, right? It's considered internal at that point, especially to our users. Sending outside should be fine. And just to add, if anyone has issues with things from other services like Evite or other external hosted services with that email going to spam, then we do have solutions for that. So you can open up a help desk ticket for that, and we can help look into that and get them into an allowed list, would prevent those emails from going to spam. And Doug, I think there was one follow-up question that we may have already sort of covered, but regarding allowing people outside of Weill Cornell to submit attachments. I think it's part of those collaboration settings that you showed, right? If you open up the form or survey to external participants, they would be allowed to submit attachments as well if one of the questions has to do with an attachment, I guess.
Correct. So if we set it to anyone can respond, and then we do collaborate or duplicate, and we're going to say, I should be able to grab a link here. And I believe I'm covering it with some things. But once you set it to anyone can respond, yes, they will be able to upload an attachment and you'll be fine. And again, it will get stored in your OneDrive. And it will not be flagged with their name. So that's where in the content of the question, you'll really want to be able to make a note to say you might want to name the file in this manner so that it has some either identifying information or not, obviously. But you would want to do that in the question text just as a reminder.
Yep. Okay, thanks for that, Doug. See a couple more questions coming in. So there's one question from Claude. Why is there a desktop office on our machines if we all have O365? Well, O365 as web services, yes. So you know, the current offering for the web-based applications, I think, is pretty mature and pretty feature-rich. But you know, the traditional full desktop apps do have even more features and in some cases are required. For example, if you're offline and not connected to the internet, then, you know, having the full desktop Office apps, I think is still you know, still pretty important for some people. But a lot of people these days can, you're right, work of the O365 web application solely. Is there a place to download the WCM template? I guess that has to do with the branding site, possibly, Doug or Vanessa?
Correct. So everything officially for the branding is available at brand.weill.cornell.edu. For forms itself, there's only really two things you can do, which is a background image and a color using the hex code. So I just copy pasted them directly from the brand site. And I just used one of the darker colors, the darker orange or the darker red, and one of the signage images.
Okay. All right. And Jared Leff is just saying that the possibly the attachment is not allowed for external participants. So we can look into that. We can definitely test and keep looking into that and get back to you. Vanessa, do you know if we can do an export of the questions in chat, like the full chat transcript?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're being recorded since I'm recording the session. So any questions we need to follow up on, I'll definitely make sure that everyone gets them.
Okay. Yeah, so we can definitely follow up on that and make sure. And there is a chance for all of us to test out the form that Doug just created. He posted a link in the chat as well. If we have a few minutes and folks want to try it out, please feel free.
Are there any other questions that people may have that we can help answer while we're on? You can also raise your hand in the reactions if you have a question you perhaps want to be on the mic for. I'm happy to unmute you.
Yeah, I think not many further questions coming in, Vanessa and Doug.
If you would like, just really quickly, I'll just showcase a couple people did test out the form. So to answer one question that came in earlier, there was absolutely correct. I misstated it. So the file attachment does disappear when you make it public. So it does say that in the form now, but you can see that a few people have responded, and I'll just show, you know, if we go to responses, we can now see some different results from the questions. So as quick as you were responding, we did pretty good on our Tech Tuesday rating, but you can see the results very quickly. And if we wanted to, we could open them in Excel. So, you know, that is a good way. Thank you for showing us that we could do a live demo showing the responses.
Oh, we just got a question. Can you integrate forms in Zoom or PowerPoint?
I've not tried that. I imagine you could. A form ultimately comes out to be shared as a link. So, you know, in a Zoom session or a PowerPoint session, you could do similar. What I did is just paste a link. There is the option to make a tinier URL that would be good to share. Same in PowerPoint, you could definitely link out from a PowerPoint or a PDF. I have not tried to do any other integration options as to whether you could directly embed it. So that's something we would need to test.
I know, for example,
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry,
Go
Vanessa.
ahead, Raphael. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know that you can access it directly, from Teams if you're chatting in Teams. I think this was mentioned in the beginning, but if you have a group conversation in a team channel, you can start a quick poll by clicking on the icons at the bottom, more icons, and hitting forms. That'll start a forms poll. So that's one integration. If you're using the web version of Excel, there should be a forms button where you can start a form right from Excel Online, the web version of Excel, which will create real-time responses that are booked right into that Excel worksheet. So that's another way of starting forms, a forms poll or survey.
And I just wanted to add to that, to answer Melissa's question about integrating forms in Zoom or PowerPoint. It depends on what your end goal is too, right? I mean, if you're going again for that audience participation, Poll Everywhere might actually be the better option in that case. If you're doing a Zoom presentation, I mean, people can see the results right there and be a little more engaged with what you're presenting on screen. So, I mean, Forms is great, and Doug demonstrated how he got everyone to answer his form while he was presenting just by putting it in the chat, but there could also be other solutions as well.
Yep.
Oh, I think this is for you, Raphael. What is the HIPAA status of forms?
Oh, so as Doug mentioned, the HIPAA approved status is true, meaning that we can use O365 for HIPAA or protected documents, PII type of information within documents. So Forms is just another service within O365, and because O365 is secured with our password authentication system, as well as multi-form factor, duo prompts, and Microsoft's own security standard, within their cloud, that we consider Forms, as well as all of O365 in general, to be viable for storing PII type of documentation. Okay.
Any other questions that we might be able to help with? I'll touch on the comment that Zara made about users tend to lead towards Qualtrics even for the most basic uses. I mean, I think that's true. And I think for a while, Qualtrics was one of the only survey tools that we had available. So of course, if people had questionnaires or surveys or any type of form they needed to create, Qualtrics was pretty much the only option for a while. So I think people have just been used to going to forms. And in the meantime, we've developed other options. I mean, you could even do polling in Zoom right now if we wanted to, as well as forms, as well as Poll Everywhere, as well as Redcap. I mean, there are a lot of different options, which I think can be maybe overwhelming for some people, but they each have their own individual use cases where it might be better to choose one over the other. So I think people should just give forms a try, especially if they just want to kind of test something on the fly. And I think it's a really good option for that. Oh, I see a question just came in from Ron that Doug answered. Can a form be connected to a specific spreadsheet that already exists? And it looks like we'll test that. So if anyone else is interested in that, we'll try to get that information out to everyone. I don't think I see any. Oh, wait, one more. Are there any other WCM resources to learn forms? I find the interface to be abysmal. Well, there are other resources. I'm actually, Claude, going to share some links in an email at the end of the session later on today. There's going to be, the video recording of this session, as well as some other guides that you can use to learn more about forms and other features that you might be able to use depending on what your use case scenario is. So you will get that later on today. Any other questions? I think that was all of them. I'll wait another few seconds. But again, if you did come in late, we are recording the session. I'll have a bunch of guides as well as a slide deck available to send via email to everyone. It looks like we don't have any other questions coming in, so I'll start wrapping it up. Thank you so much to Doug and Raphael for demonstrating forms and as well as answering questions about how to use it. And again, I'll follow up with everybody with the information about the tool. So thank you guys so much for attending this session. Be on the lookout in the coming weeks for a new schedule after the summer break. And we hope to see you at future sessions. Thanks, guys.
Yep, thank you. Take care.